And now, not the news. And if you're wondering what's going on, this one's going to be a little bit different. So traditionally, I would throw out my weekly video covering the news from the past week or so. But I want to start incorporating other sort of things into the channel as well, which means occasionally I'll just throw out a talking head video covering some or other topic related to cars. So if you're here for the Hollywood level memes and the editing skills that have been honed over the past 323 years, you're just going to have to wait for the weekly release, which I will add will be slightly delayed this week. Today, I want to talk about in-car AI. It's an idea that's starting to generate waves throughout the motor industry, and in my opinion, not in a good way. I came across an article which is talking about how in-car voice control can be this giant moneymaker for the auto industry. The article quotes a study that was done in the US, talking about how 73% of drivers are interested in in-car voice commerce. In other words, being able to talk to the car and let the car make purchases for you. So you've got them talking about ordering food, about vehicle maintenance, parking, entertainment planning, or impulse retail decisions. Every day we stray further from God. And the issue you find with these things is they're packaged as convenience, but obviously it's just designed to pull more money out of you. And they go on to talk about having always-on systems in the cars as well. Because they're like, oh yeah, the biggest issue we have in cars right now is that you have to wake them up before they will start listening to you and you can tell them what you want to do. So, for example, saying, okay, brand name, and then the assistant listens to you. That, according to them, can create extra mental load on the driver, which causes problems. So according to them, what we should have instead is something that's always listening to the driver and can work out from natural language as opposed to you saying, hey car, please turn the radio, or hey car, please adjust the blower. First of all, I want to point out that a lot of these things weren't problems when we just had buttons in the damn cars. So that's one thing. The second thing is the cars are just way too complicated for what they need to do. All you need in a car is something to control the temperature, something to control the audio, and then to be able to drive it. Okay, and I guess Bluetooth for your phone, I suppose. It doesn't matter how many voice assistants and whatever you put in the car to reduce cognitive load on the driver, while shouting safety, people are still going to use their phones while driving. Because some people just can't help but need to see their latest social media thing going on, or respond to a new text message, or whatever. So while we know that these AI features are completely unnecessary in a car, at least in the article they're being honest about making money off it. And while you might just go, yeah, this is someone on a soapbox shouting about nothing, old man yells at cloud. Think about it like this. Let's say you have an AI-enabled car. It's always listening to you and it wants you to speak to it. Maybe it's asking you about your day or if there's anything bothering you or whatever. Things that you should be discussing with your loved ones instead of a fucking computer controlled by a corporation that wants your money. And on the surface, the concept is as simple as, it can arrange if you want takeaways tonight. So when you get home, the Uber driver is already there with your food. Or it can help you book a service because you saw the car's light go on and you wouldn't be thinking about it when you get home because there are 200,000 other things on your brain. That's how it's packaged. But consider the implications beyond that. Because it sounds nice, it sounds convenient, but that's not how it's going to be used. That's the surface level of how it's going to be used. It takes very little extra to then have hidden features that make you spend money. Here's an example. You're driving home and it can tell from your voice or from your body language that you're frustrated, or that you're just thinking about food. And it can just pop up and go, hey, don't you want some KFC tonight? Because KFC have paid whoever's AI it is to push their product so that you'll go buy it. And then you, in your annoyed and vulnerable state, you're tired, it's been a long day, you don't want to think about food, you just go, you know what, screw it, yes, order me some KFC, and it orders some KFC for you. You weren't going to order that KFC. You were actually being pretty good about sticking to your diet. And now you get home and the KFC has been delivered. And then you eat it, you feel more miserable because you wanted to drop that extra kilo by the weekend. And there are more subtle examples about this as well. It notices that you've bought McDonald's in the past, but you haven't bought it for, say, a week or two, whereas usually you would buy it every 3 or 4 days. Whatever map application there is in the car, be it built-in or something like Google, can then change your route ever so slightly to make you drive past the McDonald's. And then you think, some McDonald's would be nice. You get the gist. So those are some examples of how quickly it can go sideways. And don't think I'm being a loony, at least about this subject. When the article I'm basing this video off literally talks about using AI to make money off drivers. And this extends to, because look at this line. Hyundai-backed Cardom Systems combines spatial hearing AI and cognition AI to allow devices to hear, locate, and interpret speech similar to how humans do, even in noisy or multi-speaker scenarios. So what they're saying is they can identify individual people in the car based on their voice and their position, which means they know it's you and your partner talking, not just one long stream of audio input. From that, it can then go, okay, Dave and Mary both have a profile in this car. Mary is pretty level-headed, but Dave is often partial to a sneaky takeaway. If Dave's profile is active, I'll adjust the route ever so slightly to take them past a few fast food places. It'll literally be able to understand the people in the car and adjust whatever it needs to exploit their habits. And then moving away from food, there's another aspect to that as well, services or maintenance. The cars will have access to the faults sitting inside the computer, because when a car has a fault, it gets stored on the ECU. Your car might have a fault, be it a sensor goes funny or whatever, and then the car can say, hey owner, I've noticed that you have this fault. Shall I book the car in for you? Or alternatively, it pings the dealer, and the dealer goes, oh, okay, cool. I've noticed this car's got a fault, this is who it belongs to. That sounds great on the surface because in theory the dealer can then order the parts ahead of time and it reduces the delay, saving you time and money. But it'll likely also get used as a way to refuse warranty claims. If the dealer can use the car's data straight from the ECU to find any little thing that's not 100% within their terms and conditions, they could void your warranty and leave you with a very expensive ornament. The degree to which it worms its way into every aspect of your life by being able to hear you all the time, understand the tone in which you're saying things, and potentially understand even body language, because that's another thing cars have these days, or cars to make sure the driver's paying attention, is dystopian. Because those cameras could just as easily be taking that footage, analyzing it as well as your tone, be it frustration, happiness, whatever, and then using that to subtly push certain products toward you at a time when you're more vulnerable to purchase those things. It's not about convenience. They're advertising you convenience so they can sell you products you don't need from companies who paid for product placement. Now, look, there's always a trade-off between convenience and privacy. We accept that. But at what point is this going too far? As it is, we already have over-the-air updates that will come in and potentially brick your car if something goes wrong. We're in this age of talking about software-defined vehicles, whereby the software is what gives you extra features in that, not necessarily the hardware. Manufacturers can literally turn on or off features of your car while it's sitting in your driveway without you having any say in it, except for whether you've paid the subscription this month or not. Then on top of that, you have things like the US, which is mandating kill switches in cars that they say is for use against people who are trying to drive drunk or shouldn't be driving a car or whatever. But there's nothing to say that's not all it will be used for. One thing we've learned recently is that we can't trust the government to do the right thing for the people. And it terrifies me that these types of technologies are going into cars that don't just stop at analyzing the car. They analyze you. Cameras and microphones can be used to figure things out about you that you don't even realize about yourself at the time. And that information gets used under the guise of being helpful, but instead just drives you to spend more money. How is that not considered an abhorrent level of privacy invasion and exploitation? And the fact that players in the auto industry are being this explicit about this tech, to the point where they're not really hiding it, just shows they genuinely don't think that what they're doing is a problem, or even that they're doing anything wrong. Because to their mind, they're making money while also giving you what you want. But they're not. You don't need that wireless mouse off Amazon. You don't need that extra takeaway meal. If you choose to buy something, it should at least be you that initiates the thought, rather than allowing these digital corporate spies to influence you to do that. And yes, I know that's what happens on social media, but that's a whole different topic and extends well beyond the scope of this channel. But that does lead me on to another point though. Who do we blame if these tools exploit people who are vulnerable? Let's say someone's got a mental condition and you've got an AI that's sitting in the car reading every detail about them. And then it goes and it influences them to make poor decisions in terms of money, health, etc. First of all, that's got to get caught. That in itself will take years at best to be identified. And then on top of that, to gain enough traction to the point where people say this isn't right. But then it becomes a case of who do you blame? Do you blame the company building the AI? Do you blame the car manufacturer for putting it in there? Do you blame government for not preventing it from the start? How do you even begin to unravel that problem to the point where you can actually address the causes of it? And that's what they want. They want it to be a process that you can't actually affect, and that the worst you can do is get them to pay the government a fine, but not actually stop them. And yes, I know I should have my tinfoil hat on right now because we're pushing deep into conspiracy territory, but when companies are putting out pieces going, yeah, we could use this tech to make billions off the consumer market, and then backing it up with surveys to show that there's actually interest in this, I don't think the hat is actually necessary here. I legitimately believe this is where we're headed, because all of the dots are there, and the only reason they haven't been connected is because it's something you can't do overnight. Not just from a technical standpoint, but also from a psychological one. The best way to get people to accept a new, much worse norm is not immediately to subject them to it, but to change things little by little over time until eventually you get to the end goal. Every slightly worse step becomes the new accepted norm until eventually the product is completely unrecognizable from what it started off as. Because people have the attention span of a goldfish, nobody actually notices because no one steps far enough back to see the big picture. And I want to interject here because I actually wrote this story a few weeks ago, but I haven't gotten around to recording it until now. In that time though, I've seen more examples of this coming to the fore that I'd just like to address here. One thing is that Apple Maps has come out with a feature which shows you recommended places in your area based on trending and recent searches. And more to the point, companies can pay Apple to appear at the top of these searches. This leads exactly back to my point where I said the companies can literally pay to alter your route slightly. Yes, this isn't that, but it's awfully close. Secondly, a new patent that's come from Ford. Now, it's specifically to deal with convertibles and more to the point where if you have the top down, it's difficult to tell the voice assistant what you want the car to do because of wind noise, etc. Now, obviously you have noise cancellation, but that only goes so far. So what their solution is, and granted this is just a patent at this point, but let's be honest here, it's going to become reality at some point. This patent will have cameras that monitor you and guess your wording more accurately. So the system can then figure out whether it did the right thing or not. What it does is it'll monitor your body language and eye movements to judge frustration or happiness or whatever. And based on the outcome of that, it'll adjust the system more so that it can get the right answer in the future. What this comes back to is exactly what I was saying earlier, whereby the cameras in the car, as well as the microphones, are going to be used to monitor you, to figure out what kind of mood you're in, and then make adaptations based off of that. Now, obviously here the patent is specifically to help its voice assistant figure out what you've said and whether it's right or wrong. But that is exactly what I was saying about little steps. This technology is being used to judge whether the system got you right or wrong, whether it understands you correctly. And while they say it is just limited to voice assistant, it's not used for like phone calls or whatever to monitor what you say and adjust based on that. That's fine. We don't need it on phone calls. It needs it within the AI system because the AI system itself is what's going to determine whether you're hungry, whether you're frustrated, whether you're happy. It is here. This is the patent for it. So I don't feel like I'm crazy. And then something that came up this morning as I was busy looking into news, I came across Nissan's big release of all their new vehicles, which again, I'll cover in a future video. But the part that stood out for me that made me literally drop everything I was doing to record this is that Nissan said it wants its AI partner tech to let customers assimilate their everyday life with their Nissans. Now, they didn't elaborate on what that means, but let's be honest here, this is exactly what we've been talking about in this subject. They want you to be completely engrossed in your car. They want your car to be part of you. Because think about it, it takes it a step further too. If you have a custom AI that is specifically designed around you and your needs, it goes even further beyond the fact that it spends money for you and stuff like that. It also means that you are locked into that manufacturer. Because if the manufacturer has all your data, obviously they're not going to share it with another manufacturer. Which means if you want that custom experience, if you are someone who buys into all of this, then you have to then buy Nissan or VW or Toyota or whoever for the foreseeable future, because you can't port that data across. And if you move to another manufacturer, you have to retrain that AI on all of your stuff again. Something to think about. So to wrap this up then, we need to be mindful of the dangers of these sorts of things, and not just accept that the new features being added to cars are purely for our benefit. It's done to make money. Companies in this day and age have already proven that they don't just want to sell you a product, they want to sell you some sort of subscription. Some way to keep you paying long after you've bought the original thing. And just as importantly, to punish you if you don't continue to pay. We need to look out for this, and where we see insults to us as consumers this blatant, we need to vote with our wallets. We need to show these companies that this is not acceptable behavior. And for those who are saying it's impossible, just look at the recent drop-off in EV sales. The second government grants disappeared, so did the EV sales. Because getting an EV isn't the goal for most people. It's getting value for money. The second EVs were no longer affordable, people voted with their wallets, and now companies are throwing away billions of dollars to revert all their EV plans and instead make hybrids. That alone gives me hope that we as car buyers are not completely cooked and can push back against this blatant exploitation by car manufacturers.